Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. My name is Nuraini binti Latif and my matrix number is BB19110361. So today I want to review my article. The first article that I choose is COVID-19 in Malaysia, economic impact and fiscal responses. And the second article that I choose is medical innovation and its diffusion, implication for economic performance and welfare. So the article 1 is about COVID-19 in Malaysia, economic impacts and the fiscal responses. This pandemic will have devastating effects on the Malaysian economy from both external factors, global supply and demand shock, and domestic factors during MCO. Critically, this will disproportionately impact smaller businesses and vulnerable groups such as lower-income individuals and workers. The first stage measure will aim to support incomes during the MCO, while the stage 2 is a measure aim to kickstart the economy after the restrictions are lifted. Businesses will need low-interest concessionary lending, along with wage assistance and cost elevation measures. The main sources of economic damage in Malaysia are twofold. The first is the knock-on effect from the impact of the coronavirus outbreak. The second is generated domestically due to the newly imposed movement control measures. The Malaysian economy is among the mostly highly exposed economy in the region to both Chinese demand and supply. Second, the MCO measure, while absolutely essential in impeding the outbreak of the new coronavirus in Malaysia, will have devastating economic costs too. On a macro level, the closure of businesses and services along with the travel and movement control will have outsized impacts on private consumption and business investment. Its adverse effects on individual livelihoods and businesses will be even more pernicious. Individuals and businesses affected by the temporary closure will be at high risk of facing immediate cash flow constraints as their earning windows. This can have knock-on effect on the entire economy, leaving businesses insolvent, individuals bankrupt, and the financial system sadly with non-performing loans. Broadly, Malaysia's economic policy response to the coronavirus pandemic should comprise two separate stages. Stage 1 is a measure should be implemented when quarantine partial lockdown measures are imposed to safeguard the income and liquidity of affected businesses and individuals. Increasing infrastructure spending, especially in lagging regions as proposed in the February stimulus package, can have long-term effects on productivity and economic growth. Similarly, continuing to deepen social safety net and strengthen automatic stabilizers like the EIS will both incentivize human capital accumulation and ensure both the Malaysia economy and Malaysia workers are better prepared for the future crisis. Next, the second article that I want to review is medical innovations and its diffusions, implication for economic performance and welfare. In this article, they study the impact on economic performance and welfare of medical innovations and their endogenous diffusions. They construct a general equilibrium model with a medical sector and overlapping generations subject to endogenous mortality and calibrate it to reflect the development of the US economy and healthcare over the cardiac revolution during the 1980 and 1990. By counterfactual analysis, they find that medical innovation have increased welfare without compromising GDP growth. There is a sizable welfare loss due to the adoption lag involved with imperfect diffusions, and there is scope for Pareto improvement by way of subsidization of innovative healthcare. So by counterfactual analysis, they find that medical innovation have increased welfare without compromising GDP growth. Secondly, there is a sizable welfare loss due to the adoption lag involved with imperfect diffusions. Thirdly, there is scope for parity improvement by way of subsidization of innovative healthcare. Then, there is strong evidence that medical innovation tend to boost the utilization of healthcare. An examination of these concerns warrants a general equilibrium analysis to keep track of the way in which the increase in the demand for healthcare that is induced by medical progress leads to change in the sectoral structure of the economy and of how this affects economic performance. The adoption of medical technologies and their effective use by medical doctors, hospitals, and other providers of healthcare follow a process of diffusion which shape the time lag at which innovative medicine become available to a large number of patients. This raises issue about how the diffusion process itself is shaped by the development of the market over time, about the potential welfare loss arising from slow diffusion as well as about the scope for policy making towards improving it. In this paper also, they examine the impact of medical innovation on economic performance and welfare when these innovations are subject to a process of endogenous diffusion. Specifically, they seek to provide answer to the following set of questions such they observing a strong expansion of the health share in response to medical progress. Plus, they also study this issue by analyzing an overlapping generation OLG model with realistic demography in which individuals demand healthcare to reduce mortality. Healthcare is provided within a medical sector that implies capital and labor and therefore competes for this production factor with a final goods sector. They imply the model to analyze numerically the impact of medical progress against coronary heart disease in the US during the cardiac revolution. In modeling the diffusion of medical innovation, they take into account recent evidence and insight on diffusion processes within the healthcare sector and more generally. Against this benchmark, they then study three counterfactual scenarios. The first one is a counterfactual in which they assume the absence of medical innovation beyond 1980. Secondly is a counterfactual in which they assume that medical innovation are instantaneously available from 1980 onwards. And last but not least, a counterfactual in which they study how the subsidization of innovative healthcare can speed up the diffusion of state-of-the-art medicine. So to conclude, the adoption of medical technology and their effective use by medical doctors, hospitals, and other providers of healthcare follow a process of diffusion which shapes the time lag at which innovative medicine become available to a large number of patients. This raises issue about how the diffusion process is shaped by the development of the market over time, about the potential welfare loss arising from slow diffusion, as well as about the scope for policy making towards improving it. So that's all for me. Thank you.